Welcome to Move Your Mind. My name's Nick Bracks, and this is a podcast where we have real conversations with real people and give real advice. This is the 5th episode in our Move Your Mind construction series, and today I spoke to Charles Munns and Maddie Van Sitter from Mates in Construction New Zealand. Mates is a charity that was established in 2008 to reduce the high level of suicide among Australian construction workers. Mates provides suicide prevention through community development programs on sites, and by supporting workers in need through case management and a 24/7 helpline. Mates was started because there's a big problem with mental health in the construction industry. Construction workers are 6 times more likely to die from suicide than an accident at work, and for young workers, the facts show that they are well over 2 times more likely to take their own lives than other young Australian men. It was great to sit down with these two guys and learn more about Mates and hear about their stories. It was really inspiring. I hope you enjoy, and thanks again for supporting Move Your Mind. If you want to learn more, you can go to our website moveyourmind.me and you can join our community program, or you can order the Move Your Mind book by going to nickbracks.com/book. All right, guys, thank you so much for making the time to come on the podcast at 4 o'clock New York time and 9 in your morning in New Zealand. So thanks for making the time, and good to have. I'm used to doing these with just one guest at a time, so it's always fun when we get to have 2 people on at once. So first of all, just thank you guys for making the time.
Thanks for having us.
No worries, bro. Thank you.
Before we start, I might just ask you guys to give just a quick background on the work you're doing and how you wound up where you are.
Yep, nice, sweet there. So I'll kick off, I guess, first. So my name's Charlie. I'm one of the field officers actually based out of Christchurch for Mates in Construction. I've been working with Mates for since the start of this year, so I started here in Jan, but prior to that, I did 13 years in the New Zealand Army out here at Burnham, or primarily based out of Burnham. So in there, I served in the infantry for 13 years. Like I said, deployed 3 times over that time period. Solomon Islands, East Timor, and Iraq. And I think through my experience in the military, I just got a fair idea of, what I wouldn't say a bad mental health system is, or bad sort of support system around you, but you really build your own organic support system through the friends that you meet, like Maddie over here. He'll share his story, but don't want to steal too much, but we serve together. But you really build your own internal support system through the friends that you serve with, and the camaraderie that you build through the military. So upon leaving the military, I was looking for a new opportunity to help people. I've always been passionate about helping people in any way that I can. I went through some of my own struggles through mental health and whatnot while serving, and it really opened my eyes from getting the support through my friends, doing a bit of training here with Mates in Construction, and then it's really just opened my eyes to really wanting to help people in any way that I can. So like I said, joined on here at Mates in January, been there 8-9 months now, and it's been awesome. It's been an awesome ride, just getting out there amongst the construction industry, running through some training sessions, meeting heaps of people, and just helping anyone that I can.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Did you want to share how you got into it as well?
Yes, sweet. So my name's Maddie. I'm another field officer here with Mates. So similar to Charlie, we both serve together. So it really gives us that kind of good narrative working in the space together. We were quite good mates, still are really good mates prior to working with Mates. So so I did about 5-6 years in the military. I only did the one deployment, but that deployment being the one in Iraq. So over there, Charlie was my section commander, and I was one of the guys running around on the ground, which was cool. But we experienced something quite traumatic that happened over there. And as you can imagine, I was only about 20, 21 at the time. That was quite heavy, quite a weight to bear, I guess. Struggling through, or working through that. I kind of fell into a space that I saw a lot of our mates struggling. Like Charlie touched on, that the military doesn't have the best kind of professional support network, but you do build that within your support network, within your peers, or within the boys, or within your units, and all the rest of it. So it was quite hard to see, all the stigmas and all the barriers as to, how, us as men, we don't speak, and that was quite prevalent. We did see a lot of our mates struggle, people like Charlie, myself, falling into a space where we were finding it hard to deal with some of the things that we'd been through. So then, when Charlie actually found the job at Mates, he kind of contacted us and was like, there's a job here if any of you guys want to have a nudge. I was still quite young at the time, so I was kind of like, we'll see how we go, working in mental health and especially, suicide prevention. It can be quite a hard space to navigate at my age, So through my application of the war, it must have stuck. They must have saw something, and especially, like I say, us knowing each other quite well, we have that good bond out on site, and when we do our training sessions, that we really can hit home a lot of things that we're trying to implement within teaching people. So, through those experiences, I'm just someone who really cares, and I'm quite passionate. I've seen too many people, struggling, mental health and all the rest of it, and I think that organically we've built tools from our experiences that really keep us afloat and keep us good in that space. So really trying to implement that or teach other people is something we're super passionate about. So it's awesome to be able to work with Charlie and try and make a difference, I guess.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that to both of you. And I love that story that the two of you have had that experience and have then been able to eventually work together in this organization and help in mental health and I guess it's such a big issue in construction, in the military. That's a huge PTSD, and there's so many issues with that, and in general, like what you were talking about with men, we're not taught to have these conversations. We're not taught to talk about it. We don't often know where to go or how we're meant to deal with it, or feel like we should just bottle things up and move on, and it doesn't work to do that. These are heavy things, and the results show it. So, yeah, it's a big thing.
No,
it's so. What have you working in mates? What has been sort of the biggest thing you've learnt through that, and noticed in the industry? What are some of the insights that you've gained from working there? I guess either one of you, or whoever wants to go, or I can just start. Maybe I'll start throwing one question each time at one of you. But yeah, Matty, if you wanted to go with that one.
No, it is. I suppose I feel like myself, and it kind of just reaffirms what we've sort of touched on already, or things we've learned is, a lot of us as guys, we know construction is a male-dominated industry, but we don't always or often want to talk to essentially a professional. You don't want to go and see a psychologist or counsellor or social worker or whatnot. You kind of you want to yarn and vent and open up those problems to, whether it be a mate, whether it be a random, someone down at the pub, or someone your taxi driver or whatnot. You kind of just want someone that you can unload all your crap to, and then if you want, you can leave it at that. Or if you do want, if that person can get you next levels of support, then they are there. But initially, your first step to sort of reaching out for help is to generally open up to a friend or someone close to you, or sometimes even a stranger, just because there's that fear of being judged, depending on who you're talking to. So you want to open up to someone where that isn't a worry in your mind that person's just going to judge me. And I think in the construction industry, that's where myself and Maddie have kind of I think hit home in a sense. When we pop out on site, we're not, you can look at us straight off the bat generally, and we're not psychologists, we're not counsellors. As we said, we're a couple of dudes coming out of the military through our own experiences and a bit of training here with mates. We just can relate to a lot of people real well, and that's sort of part of, I think, something that you learn throughout the military as well. You learn to relate to so many different people from different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different cultures, or whatever it is. And guys and girls on site just love that, We're just a couple of knockabout dudes you can have a yarn, you can have a conversation with, and it just feels real. It's genuine. It's not, they're not paying me to talk to them. I'm dude there having a conversation.
Yeah, we really try and humanise the topic, really on a human level, I guess. It's really easy to be in the space and, be very kind of corny or professional. We try and steer away from that the best we can. It's if I can stand up here, and me and Charlie can stand up here openly and honestly talk about things like suicide and things that have been for so many years suppressed, that, within the media, everything no one talks about. So if we can stand up there and kind of have this open discussion about it, we're really trying to push that narrative within, construction or just our communities in general, that, hey, if you're feeling this way, because the thing is, people, when they're in that space, maybe feeling suicidal or having these thoughts, because it's not a welcome conversation to have a lot of the time, people suppress that, and they don't feel comfortable to open up because they're scared of the kind of backlash that is going to come from having that discussion. So we try our best to kind of stand up there and be like, hey, it's okay to talk about. We can have this discussion. We can talk about things like suicide and mental health openly. And, you see it. It's awesome to see things like this podcast, people with, kind of social media backgrounds and all the rest of it, being able to talk about it. It is slowly changing that culture over time, but we're just trying to do our best, within construction, especially obviously with the company that we work for. They've been hit hard, and they do have very high rates of suicide at the moment. So it's awesome that we can play that small part, stepping away from that professional space and really do our best to, support everyone that we can, I guess.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's such an important point, what you're saying. And I've seen that in the work that I've done. When I first started doing talks, I just went in there and just told my story and didn't try and do anything. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this actually worked, because I think people, like exactly what you guys are saying, people are relieved to hear that. They're like, oh, wow, this is actually a real person telling a story, and they can relate, and you're giving them, and then they hear that and they're like, oh, maybe that gives me permission to then be able to talk about my story. Whereas if you just sending in a professional who's going to sort of just say, well, this is what you should do, and do these exercises or whatever, like that's important knowledge, but not as an entry point. So I think it is, and you guys are so approachable, and have your own actual story, and having you guys as men saying that, I think it's really powerful, really important.
And that's another thing, us being men as well, especially young men. I'm a little bit younger than Charlie there, but and that's another. We really can tailor towards a lot of the demographics, especially in New Zealand, like our young men are at that high risk. To suicide. That's the highest rates of suicide do come from that age bracket between 20 and 24. So it's me falling into that age bracket. It's really awesome to be able to. I connect with a lot of our apprentices and a lot of our younger people coming into the industry. So.
Yeah, massively. And so in the other stats for mental health conditions higher in construction than in general, are there sort of is there shown to be a bigger problem in that industry?
Yeah. So in New Zealand, the construction industry actually has the highest rates of suicide throughout any industry in New Zealand. So that's sort of essentially why we're here. We're trying to tackle that problem and hopefully, bring those numbers down. Like it is a nationwide problem, I believe, and worldwide, however you want to look at it. But we do focus on construction. But the trainings or just being up there talking about it does relate, I think, to everyone, and hopefully can encourage. If we can encourage construction workers, they may encourage their family or friends and whatnot who are outside construction to also hopefully openly have these conversations.
And year on year, are you guys seeing a big change in the construction industry with mental well-being and programs, conversations? Is there a big positive change happening? And I guess the second part of that, how far do you think we have to go with that?
Yeah.
So if we touch on, because mates actually kind of originated out of Australia, so they've been there for about 13 years, and the statistics we have from there, I know they're offered across 5 states. 200,000 construction workers have been through our program, and they've actually been able to bring the suicide rates down by 10%. And saying that, so it's really awesome to see the work that they're doing over there, and you can see that it has kind of come to fruition. The rates dropping, I guess, over that 10%. Us being here in New Zealand, we've only been on since probably about January, so it'd be hard to kind of comment. I personally think we are having a massive impact, and we do have a long way to go. Well, there's roughly about 300,000 construction workers in New Zealand, and I think at the moment we've
30 or 35,000 people may have been through the training. I think I believe I last checked, but I do. I think statistics aside, the culture shift that we see when we go on site, it does, I wouldn't say everywhere, because there are still some places and some companies or some people where they're not probably willing to have these conversations yet, but we definitely do see a positive impact in other areas, where people are opening up and finally having those conversations. The people who talk to us when we're on site, we will hang around and, try and have a yarn with people just to, again, be that presence on the ground. But also the fact that, like I said, we are a charity, Mates Construction, and the fact that I think we're up to around maybe 160 partners have come on board. So that just shows the industry as well, they're backing to try and get behind us and do change this narrative. So the fact that more companies are coming on board, I think is that's a good starting point, because if no one was jumping on board, obviously, it'd be very hard to create that change with no one wanting us out on their sites.
Absolutely. No, I think it's a really good point. And that's all we can do at the end of the day anyway. Just chip away at things, have more of these conversations, try and just make progress in as many areas as we can. And the more we push it, the more we'll see. So I think it's great what you're doing. Before we go into these closing questions, was just going to ask for each of you, maybe Maddie, if you want to go first, just in your own personal journeys, what have been some of the things on a, doesn't have to just be a mental health basis, but just in your own general well-being, whether it's exercise or, whatever it is in terms of just, getting yourself into and maintaining balance in your lives.
Maintaining balance. Balance is huge, and I think if you can step away, especially in our role, being able to step away from the mental health guy or being that person, it's really important that my identity isn't just the suicide preventing officer. Being able to step away with that, I do like to get to the gym. I do a bit of surfing. There's things that we have this analogy where you try and keep your cup full, and if you can't do that, you're not going to be able to fill anyone else's. So it's important that you're able to step away, and I really hammer that home. Me and Charlie really try and hammer that home that, hey, this is our job and we do our best and we give it our everything when we're in that space, but we need to be able to step away, whether that's, me and Charlie hang out outside of work. So we'll do our best not to talk about work, try and really distance ourselves from that space, because it's easy to be able to, tip over or, kind of become overwhelmed when you're talking about suicide and you're talking about death on a day-to-day basis. So my biggest thing is just making sure I'm disconnecting. Not my whole identity. My whole identity isn't my work. It's I can step away. And I found that in the army as well. It's quite easy to become that 24/7 soldier. It's really hammered home that that's the way you should be, and you live, breathe, and crap the infantry kind of mentality. So you've got to I thought it was quite important to be able to step away from that, and I'm really trying to have that work-life balance is massive for me.
I think it's a great point, and that's and for anyone, I guess now we live in a world where it's 24/7, and if you don't actually make the conscious effort yourself to step away and have other things outside of work, how are we going to turn off? We've got phones by our side 24/7, so I think it's super important.
And if you look at even some of our small business owners and all the rest of it, their whole identity is built around what's going on. So if their business is having a good day, they're having a good day. If it's not, they're not having a good day. So it's that can be quite draining. It can be really draining that if you've put so much time and effort into creating something or being a part of something, everything's fluctuating by the success of that. So if you're able to step away from it and be like, hey, this is my work life, what do I need to do to kind of keep myself afloat outside of that?
Exactly. And Charlie, did you? What about you? Similar things, or have you got?
Yeah, I think in a sense, Maddie has covered a little bit of it because we are quite similar, very similar background and whatnot. But I think it was a lot harder for me initially. Like I said, leaving the army, it is drilled into you, it's ingrained into you that you're a 24/7 soldier. And I think I did. Well, I don't know, it's easy to sit here and say, but when I was in the army, I did try and live and breathe that. I'd do anything for my job. That was sort of why I joined the army and everything about it. So leaving was a massive step for me. And so once I had left the army, being able to, I suppose, adjust to not being that 24/7, I suppose, field officer was a big adjustment. I didn't do that great at first, but now I really do try and, like Maddie's going to touch on, but just separate myself from work when I'm not at work. So I make a massive emphasis on, it's very easy to get caught up, like you said, with phones and whatnot, always being connected. That once I get home, just shutting off my phone, leaving my laptop in the car so it's flat the next day or whatnot. But just so I physically almost can't work unless I'm absolutely needed. So I can go home and be a better father, a better parent, a better partner to my family. Because I think looking back on it, that was probably what sort of fell on the back burner when I was in the army, because I gave everything to the army. So when I got home, I probably didn't give as much as I could have to my family, and I really emphasize on doing that now. I do try and do a little bit of fitness. Like I said, that's probably been parked a bit more now because of leaving the army, you don't have to. So it is a bit of a good change of pace, change of speed that you don't have to do it. I'm a bit of a serial golf player. If I can get out and play some golf, or just something to do for myself is a big thing that I'll always try and focus on. If I can do one thing for myself, not necessarily every day, but every couple of days, twice a week or something, just to disconnect from work, even from home, to focus on myself, be okay in my own mind. It just really helps me for, the next week or the next few days, that I can carry on and focus with whatever I need to do.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that, and all really good points. And I think it's so important that we might not be able to do things for ourselves every day, but as much as we can, like you're saying, try and make the effort to do it. Otherwise, weeks, months, years pass, and you don't, you put aside all these things that, help you, that are part of you, and you sort of that's how you get burnt out. So yeah, I think really good points
the
there.
first things that you park as well as the things you do for yourself.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
always go, oh, no, I'll just do that today. I'll do work instead, where, probably reverse it and you'll be better off for the next day and you'll get that work done anyway.
Yeah.
Exactly. You'll find a way. If you're happier, you're going to find a way to get it done anyway. So, no, I love that. So, yeah, thank you again, guys, for coming on. I'll put a link to the Mates website in the show notes when we release this episode. And we finish every episode with 5 closing questions. These can be quick answers, whatever comes to mind. So maybe we'll go, Charlie, you can go first, and then Maddie, if that's the easiest way to do it. And nothing too crazy in these questions, but we sort of finish every episode with these 5. With the first one is, what do you think is one of the biggest burdens on mental health in society at the moment?
One of the biggest burdens, I think, almost the lack of education. Like, a lot of people don't understand where the help is. So even if they do manage to look through the stigma or the shame or whatever it was that does come with mental health, they don't even know where to start to get help. So just being a bit more aware, or educating people on where the help is a massive step, so that if you do finally, those people do want to reach out for help, they know where to go. We know there are people who don't want help, or sometimes they refuse help, but at least if someone does finally get manage to speak up or ask for help, that they know where to go, and it is accessible, I suppose, is another one. The accessibility to the help is sometimes quite hard to get.
Thank you so much for supporting Move Your Mind. We're expanding the offerings of the organisation, and we're tailoring everything we do to suit you guys and to try and answer to all of your needs and the questions that you send in. The book is available globally. You can find all of the links at nickbracks.com/book. And we've just released the Move Your Mind community. We've currently got a men's community group, a women's community group, a general group. We're going to be loading up other groups, and you can find all of the links at moveyourmind.me. This group's been created based on the needs of what we've heard and learnt throughout running Move Your Mind. And we have live events, we've got courses, we've got huge amounts of value, the ability to share information, share ideas, work in groups together to grow and share your learnings, to learn about different topics. You get email reminders. There's a whole lot of features in there. We're constantly updating it, and we're so excited to share it with you. You can find all of the information about it at moveyourmind.me. Massively. We'll alternate each one. Why don't we do that?
Sorry.
So that otherwise these. Sorry, I had meant flicking, but I think coming to think of it, it's probably better.
Yeah.
My name's Nick Bracks, and I'm a storyteller who has dedicated my entire adult life to creating positive conversations around mental health. In recent years, discussions around mental health have become less taboo and entered the mainstream vernacular. I've delivered over 1,000 mental health seminars around the globe, including several TED Talks, and I believe we all have a story to tell. In my book, Move Your Mind, I cover my story and stories from people that inspire me, as well as insights from world-leading mental health experts. This book will help you to learn how to recognise mental health issues before they become a problem. Use your personal challenges as motivators, take ownership of your well-being, and create new daily habits that increase happiness and reduce stress. All right, well, Maddie, this one can be for you. What's your best childhood memory that comes to mind?
I wasn't expecting that. Childhood memory. Well, like I say, I really enjoy my surfing. So my old man bought me a surfboard when I was super young, and probably just spending time at the beach with the family. And definitely some fond memories of that kind of space, or just hanging out at the beach, trying to learn to surf, catching my first wave. All that kind of jazz is probably definitely up there with one of the probably my best childhood memories, I guess. I love that. It'll probably have to be it.
There we go.
Glad you got the question.
No, I know, I like that answer. That's great. Charlie, this one for you. What are you most afraid of?
I don't know. That's a very hard question. I've got like where we're touching on like simple things like spiders or heights or
Can be anything, Your biggest fear, or it could be in mental health. What do you find most? However you want to answer it.
I suppose like I'll go with a few, but yeah, I suppose no, I hate snakes. I do hate snakes. My partner, if she ever watches this, she will crack up. But I hate snakes; they scare the living bejeebies out of me. But I suppose outside of that, more direct to what we're talking about is just if I were to struggle and I suppose to fall into that space, and because I shared a little bit earlier, but I have been in a dark space before where I contemplated suicide, or I entertained the thoughts of suicide, and I suppose my biggest fear would be to the point where maybe potentially I thought acting on that was better than doing something about it, like opening up and talking to my mates, my friends, my partner, whoever it was, because like I said, I have 2 young boys, I have a wife, and the fact that I could ever fall into that space, and some people do, and potentially either act on it opposed to doing something about it or seeking help, that scares me to death.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. And couldn't agree more. And I've been, I got into this space myself because I was in a really dark space in my early 20s, and, never got to that point where I was suicidal, but I was at such a low point that I, felt such a helplessness and didn't want to have a future. And the one thing I remembered, or sort of hung on to from that period was, wow, if I this is how bad this feels, like it, the feeling that people have when they're in that position, it's hard to put into words. And it's why we need to have these conversations and let people know that there actually there's always something that you can do, and there's always a solution. You just need to be able to talk about it. So I think, it's a really good point.
Yeah, no, 100%. And thank you for sharing that as well. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, no problem. So we've got 2 more here. So 1 more each. I'll try and hopefully not anything too crazy. Maddie, this one is, what is your best, sorry, I just said that one. What is your personal definition of happiness?
Personal definition of happiness. Personal definition of happiness. That it's quite broad. I guess it would just have to be, if being able to wake up on like a Monday morning and be excited for that, if that makes sense. So finding something, it's easy to get caught in that rat race of, you've got to make enough money and own a house and all this kind of jazz. It's really just being able to wake up, and if I'm content with what I'm doing, then that's happiness. I don't want to be one of those people who are kind of working for the weekend. It's if I can find a job that, that doesn't, and I feel like that's what this job is for us. Sometimes it's, I get to wake up on a Monday morning when most people are kind of dreading that I get to hang out with one of my close mates and go around and talk about mental health and, help try and change that. So, it's finding something that, it's not a burden, or it's something that finding purpose, or finding something that's not, not going to be a burden, or not going to be something that you dread. It's kind of finding that contentness with what you do is kind of happiness for me.
Great. Yeah, 100%. I think it's such a good point. And like, we spend so much of our lives working that, instead of being, like you're saying, we're taught to focus on this end result. And when I get to X or own X amount of houses or have a certain amount of money in my bank, then I can finally be happy. And if you have that mindset, you can never be happy. But it's like the only way to be happy is right now, if we can just enjoy each moment, what we're actually doing, find meaning and purpose in it. Yeah, so I think it's like it's critical that we, at least try and find a version of that for ourselves.
For sure.
Yeah. All right, final one. You've survived 4 questions.
Oh no, you've got 3.
You get, Charlie, you're getting 3, mate. Final one for you. What are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of? Surprisingly, Maddie, nah. What am I most proud of? I'm actually like, I look back at it quite a lot sometimes when I do just reflect, but I'm actually proud almost of myself in a sense, well, I grew up in the middle of nowhere, this little place called Tikal, right up at the top of the North Island, and always, my dream was to join the army, was to go out, serve my country, do a few deployments, travel, and then had my own little family, buy a house and whatnot, and I've actually achieved all that stuff to this point. It's actually quite surprised myself sometimes when I do look back of where I came from, thinking of what I wanted to do in my life, and that I've actually achieved a lot of it. It's very easy to think, I could have done all this other cooler stuff. I could have traveled the whole entire world. I could have been a professional golf player or whatnot. I don't know, but to actually have, I planned to do 5, 6 years in the army. I served 13, and I enjoyed every minute of it. I bought my own house with my partner. I've got 2 young boys. To build that little family that I have down here in Christchurch now it's awesome. And I actually, since leaving the army, going home every day, seeing my kids, seeing my partner, I actually love it. And I am actually very proud of what I've achieved through my, I suppose, 30 years. Not too old like Maddie tries to say I am. I'm only 30, but yeah, to have achieved that in that time that I have, I'm extremely proud of myself and what I have done and what I've come through to get to where I am now. And even to be here with mates doing this job, trying to bring awareness to this topic, to this subject is just awesome, I think. And hopefully we've helped a few people along the way. We still got a long way to go, but yeah, I suppose in a short answer, just proud of myself of what I have achieved.
I love that. And yeah, you guys have done a lot at a young age. So, and that the point you're saying, it feeds into the same thing we we're talking about before of, when it's so easy for us to, and I'm trying to get better at this myself, where when you actually look back and think, what have I actually done? And, when I was 15 or 18, where did I want to be? And you look back, you're like, holy shit, I actually did all these things. But It's so easy to get caught up and think, like you're saying, but I could have also done this. And what about that? And what about this? When that literally, it's impossible to be happy if you think like that, because no one in the world can do everything. So it's a recipe for unhappiness, like sort of comparing and wanting more. So I think it's a good point to end it on. So thank you both for making the time to do this first thing in the morning, and great to have you on, and hopefully we can stay in touch, and love having this chat.
Yeah, man, no worries. Thanks for having us.
100%. Thank you. I was pretty nervous when Maddie signed us up for a podcast, but I actually enjoyed that. So, thanks, man, and enjoy New York.
Yeah.
Will do. No, you guys were great. If that was your first one, you did a great job. Super easy to talk to. So appreciate it.
No worries, bro. Thanks for your time.
Thanks to Charles and Maddie for joining me today for Move Your Mind.